Hey there, safety enthusiasts, and welcome back to the Key Safety Talks YouTube channel. We're doing things a little different today, kicking things up a notch with a brand new daily podcast format, bringing you those bite-sized pieces of safety wisdom straight to your ears. And today we're venturing into a world that's often hidden in plain sight. Yet it profoundly impacts every single one of us. The world of safety and health professions. Think about it. Those folks working tirelessly behind the scenes to make sure our workplaces, our homes, even our commutes are as safe as can be. You might not always see them, but trust me, they're the unsung heroes making sure we get home safe and sound each day. Remember that factory fire a few months back? A fire protection engineer's quick thinking and clever design saved countless lives. That's the kind of impact we're talking about. And to guide us through this fascinating landscape, we have a true expert in the field, someone who's not only incredibly knowledgeable, but also has a knack for explaining even the most complex stuff in a way that's easy to understand. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Happy to shed some light on this often overlooked world of safety and health professions. It's true we might not wear capes, but preventing those something wrongs is our superpower.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit. You mentioned it's a complex field. Just how many different kinds of safety and health professions are out there?
Oh, way more than you might think. It's like a giant puzzle where each piece represents a unique specialization, all working together to create a safer world. You've got your safety engineers, your industrial hygienists, health physicists, ergonomists, fire protection engineers, and so many more, each playing a crucial role in ensuring safety across a wide range of industries and environments.
So where did this whole concept of safety professions even come from? Did it just kind of appear out of thin air?
It's fascinating, actually. The roots of safety can be traced back to the Industrial Revolution. Think early 1900s factories springing up everywhere, machines churning, progress happening at lightning speed. But this rapid industrialization came at a cost. A wave of accidents, injuries, and sadly even deaths. It was a wake-up call that something needed to change.
So that's where engineers stepped in. They were the first safety professionals.
Precisely. They were the pioneers armed with their technical know-how, figuring out ways to make these newfangled machines and processes safer. It was all about using their understanding of engineering principles to prevent hazards. Interestingly, even back in 1941, over 100 engineering colleges had introduced courses on accident prevention. That's how critical safety became.
That's what I call a turning point. So we have engineers leading the charge, but then things started branching out, right? What were some of those early specializations that emerged?
As we learned more about workplace hazards, new fields of expertise began to bloom. For instance, industrial hygiene emerged, focusing on protecting workers from exposure to harmful substances and environments. Think about those old-timey factories with minimal ventilation and workers handling dangerous chemicals. Industrial hygienists were the game changers. Then you had the rise of health physics, dealing with the invisible yet powerful force of radiation, ensuring its safe use in medicine research and nuclear energy.
Sounds like a lot of brain power was needed to tackle those invisible dangers.
Absolutely. And we can't forget about fire protection engineering. That recent factory fire you mentioned, a fire protection engineer likely designed the fire suppression systems and evacuation routes that save lives. They're the unsung heroes ensuring our buildings are designed to withstand and contain fires.
Wow. So even in those early days, the safety field was already becoming incredibly diverse. But how did safety transition from engineers doing it on the side to a recognized profession in its own right?
That's a fantastic question. As the role of safety professionals expanded, the need for standards training and recognition grew too. Enter organizations like the American Society of Safety Engineers, or S for short. They've been instrumental in setting the bar for what it means to be a qualified safety professional.
So ATSEA is like the gold standard, the stamp of approval for safety pros.
You could say that. They've played a huge role in establishing standards for education training and ethical practices, championing the value of the profession and pushing for the highest standards. And as the field continued to specialize, we saw other professional organizations emerge, each focusing on a specific area, like industrial hygiene, health physics, and ergonomics. These organizations are all about maintaining high standards, providing continuing education opportunities, and creating a network of professionals who can learn from each other.
Okay, we've got this whole network of organizations helping to shape the safety profession. But let's zoom in on the individuals, the boots on the ground safety professionals. What kind of roles do they actually fill within companies and organizations? Are we talking just inspections, or is there more to it?
Oh, there's so much more to it, and that's where the excitement lies. The roles safety professionals play are as diverse as the hazards they address. It truly depends on their specialization and the type of organization they're in. But one thing's for sure, it's rarely a desk job.
Let's break down some of these roles. I think our listeners are getting a sense of just how wide-ranging this field really is.
Let's start with those pioneer and safety engineers. They're still a cornerstone of the safety landscape. They're like the architects of safety using their deep understanding of engineering to design systems, processes, and even buildings that minimize risks, whether it's evaluating the safety of a massive piece of machinery or planning escape routes in case of an emergency. They're the ones thinking ahead, identifying potential hazards, and finding ways to eliminate or control them.
Why, so they're all about preventing those oops moments before they even happen.
Exactly. Proactive problem solvers, that's what they are. And they often work hand in hand with another key player, the industrial hygienist.
Now, I've always been curious about industrial hygienists. What exactly do they do? Is it all about hand sanitizer and making sure people wash their hands?
Well, hygiene is part of it, but it's a lot more complex than that. Industrial hygienists are like the detectives of the safety world. They meticulously investigate workplaces to uncover potential hazards that could lead to illness or injury. We're talking about everything from chemicals and noise to radiation, and even the way your workstation is set up. They're the ones measuring exposure levels, assessing risks, and recommending solutions to keep workers healthy and safe.
So they're looking beyond immediate dangers, considering those long-term health risks that might not be so obvious at first glance. Kind of like the silent threats?
Precisely. They're thinking about how exposure to certain substances or working conditions might affect you over time. Think repetitive strain injuries from spending hours at a poorly designed computer workstation. Industrial hygienists are the ones who say, hey, let's adjust this chair, improve the lighting, and maybe take more breaks.
This all sounds pretty high-tech. Do you need a science degree to become an industrial hygienist?
It's a strong background in science. Especially chemistry and biology is definitely a plus. But there's also a ton of specialized training involved, from identifying hazards and assessing risks to mastering different control methods.
So you're basically a scientist, the detective, and a problem solver all rolled into one.
That's a pretty accurate description. And you know that blend of technical know-how, analytical thinking. And communication skills is something you see in many safety professionals. They need to be able to understand the science, assess the risks, and then explain it all in a way that everyone can understand.
We've talked about safety engineers and industrial hygienists, but we can't forget those who deal with the invisible and sometimes intimidating world of radiation. Health physicists.
Radiation safety is definitely a unique and specialized field. Health physicists are the experts in understanding how radiation works, how it can affect people, and most importantly, how to minimize exposure. They're essential in industries like nuclear power medicine and research, where radiation is a vital tool but needs to be handled with extreme care.
So they're like the guardians of the invisible, making sure this powerful force doesn't become a threat.
Precisely. They use their deep knowledge to create safety protocols, monitor radiation levels, and basically make sure everyone is protected. From the workers handling radioactive materials to the general public. Think of them as the invisible shield against an invisible threat.
This is incredible. We've only just scratched the surface of safety and health professions, and it's already clear how diverse and critical these roles are.
And you know what makes it even more exciting? It's a field that's constantly evolving. Every day brings new challenges, new technologies, and new ways to make the world a safer place.
That's what I love about this topic. It's all about continuous learning and finding creative solutions to complex problems. Before we dive even deeper into these different roles, I'm curious about the path to becoming a safety professional. What kind of education or training is required?
That's a great question. And the answer, like many things in safety, is it depends. The path can vary dependent on the specific role you're interested in. However, in general, a college degree is becoming increasingly important. Many safety professionals now hold at least a bachelor's degree, often in fields like safety engineering, industrial hygiene, or occupational health and safety.
So a solid educational foundation is key. But what happens after graduation? Are there any specific licenses or certifications required to work in this field?
That's where it can get a bit tricky. The distinction between licensing and certification often causes confusion, even for those already in the field.
Can you break down the difference for us? It sounds like this is something our listeners might be curious about too.
Absolutely. Think of licensing as a legal stamp of approval, usually at the state level to practice certain professions. This is common for professions that directly impact public safety, like doctors, lawyers, engineers, and architects. It's the government's way of saying, hey, we need to make sure you meet certain minimum standards of competence. And ethical conduct before you go out there and do your thing.
So it's like getting permission from the government to do your job. Makes sense. But what about certification?
Certification is more about demonstrating your expertise in a specific area. Going above and beyond the basic requirements for licensing, it's usually voluntary, but it can be incredibly valuable in showing potential employers that you've got the skills and knowledge to excel.
It's like a bonus, a way to stand out in a competitive job market.
Exactly. Think of it as a way to showcase your commitment to professional development and continuous learning. And it's often offered by those professional organizations we talked about earlier, like ASSE. To get certified, you usually have to pass an exam and meet certain experience requirements, proving you've truly mastered your craft.
It sounds like building a career in safety requires a lot of dedication and a hunger for knowledge. But before we get deeper into career paths, I'm curious about something you mentioned earlier, the international aspect of safety. You said practices can vary quite a bit from country to country. I find that fascinating.
It's true. While the core principles of safety are generally universal, the way those principles are implemented, and the specific roles safety professionals play can differ dramatically around the world.
What drives those differences? Is it just about cultural quirks, or is there more to it?
It's a complex mix of factors. You've got cultural attitudes towards safety, government regulations, industry-specific practices, and even the historical evolution of the safety profession in a particular country. For example, some European countries have a much stronger emphasis on ergonomics and worker well-being than you might find in other parts of the world.
So it's not just about memorizing a set of universal rules,
Yeah.
but also about understanding the specific context, needs, and culture of the industry and location where you're working.
Exactly. A truly effective safety professional needs to be adaptable, a bit like a chameleon adjusting their approach, based on the unique circumstances of each situation.
This is all so eye-opening. It seems like teamwork is a recurrent theme in our conversation. You've mentioned several times that safety isn't a solo mission.
You're absolutely right. Safety is a team sport. You need everyone on board and working together to create a truly safe and healthy work environment. That means workers, supervisors, managers, and of course the safety professionals themselves.
So how do you cultivate that kind of collaborative safety culture? What does it look like in action?
First and foremost, it's about building trust. Workers need to feel comfortable speaking up about safety concerns without fear of reprisal. It's about creating an environment where everyone feels empowered to point out potential hazards or suggest improvements.
So it's not just about following orders,
Yeah.
but about everyone feeling like they have a voice and can contribute to a safer workplace.
Exactly. And that means supervisors need to be trained to listen, to take those concerns seriously, and to address them promptly. Managers play a crucial role, too, by investing in safety resources, providing ongoing training, and consistently reinforcing the message that safety is a top priority.
It sounds like open communication is essential. No one should be afraid to speak up if they see something that seems risky.
Absolutely. And it's not just about top-down communication. Safety professionals need to be skilled communicators, too, explaining risks clearly, ensuring everyone understands the reasons behind safety procedures, and keeping everyone informed about safety updates, incident investigations, and any lessons learned.
It's all about transparency and creating a shared understanding of why safety matters.
Precisely. When everyone feels like they're part of the solution, that's when you start to see real progress. Fewer accidents, healthier workers, and a more productive work environment. Everyone wins.
This brings us to a question that's probably on the minds of many of our listeners, especially those considering a career in safety. What's the job outlook like? Is this a growing field? What about salaries?
That's a smart question, and I'm happy to report that the job outlook for many safety and health professions is actually quite positive. The Bureau of Labor Statistics projects faster than average growth for several safety-related occupations over the next decade. So if you're thinking about a career in safety, the future looks bright.
That's encouraging news. What about salary expectations?
Salaries can vary quite a bit, depending on your experience, location, and specialization, but overall, safety professionals are well compensated for the vital work they do. After all, they're protecting people's lives and well-being.
I love how you frame that. They're truly guardians of well-being. Before we wrap up this part of our conversation, I want to share a story that highlights the power of teamwork and safety, and it comes from a surprising source: the world of sports.
Oh, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
It's about the legendary Green Bay Packers coach, Vince Lombardi. He was known for his tough, demanding leadership style, but he also had this unwavering commitment to safety and teamwork. He believed that a team that took care of each other both on and off the field would ultimately perform better.
I can see where he's coming from. When you feel safe and supported, you're more likely to take risks, innovate, and ultimately achieve greater success.
Exactly. And guess what? Lombardi's philosophy worked. He led the Packers to 5 NFL championships in 7 years.
That's a powerful example of how a culture of safety can contribute to success in any field. Not just sports, it shows that safety isn't just about preventing negative outcomes, but also about creating a positive environment where people feel valued, supported, and empowered to do their best work.
This story perfectly encapsulates what we've been talking about: the impact of leadership, the power of teamwork, and the idea that safety is about so much more than just following rules. It's about creating a culture of caring and shared responsibility.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from the history of the safety profession to the incredible diversity of roles that safety professionals play. And we've just scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore.
And explore we shall.
Stay tuned for part 2 of our podcast, where we'll delve even deeper into specific safety specializations and uncover even more fascinating insights about this dynamic and ever-evolving field. Welcome back, safety fans. We're diving deeper into the amazing world of safety and health professions. Remember, this isn't just about hard hats and warning signs. It's about the people who make sure those things actually protect us. We left off talking about teamwork.
And that's the perfect segue into one of the most important parts of safety, the human element.
You hit the nail on the head. Rules and regulations are crucial. But understanding how people think and behave is the real key to creating a truly safe workplace.
It's like you can have all the best safety gear in the world, but if people aren't using it properly or understanding why it's important, then what's the point, right?
Exactly. That's where the field of behavioral safety shines. It's all about figuring out why people sometimes make unsafe choices, and then developing strategies to encourage safer habits. So instead of just slapping someone on the wrist for not following the rules, you're trying to get into their heads and understand the why behind their actions.
Precisely. It's about shifting from a culture of blame to a culture of understanding and prevention. Behavioral safety focuses on rewarding positive behaviors and creating an environment where people actually want to be safe.
Sounds like a much more effective approach than just relying on fear and punishment.
Absolutely. And it leads to better results in the long run. Less accidents, more engagement, a happier workforce.
Okay, so how does this actually play out in the real world? What are some concrete steps companies can take to foster that kind of positive safety culture?
Well, it all starts at the top. Leadership needs to be genuinely committed to safety, not just saying it, but demonstrating it through their actions. They need to invest in training resources and creating a system where everyone feels empowered to speak up about safety concerns.
It's like setting the tone right. If the big bosses don't care about safety, then why should anyone else?
Exactly. It's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk. And it's not just about management. Engaging workers is crucial. One highly effective method is observation and feedback.
Okay, I'm picturing someone with a clipboard, lurking in the shadows, ready to pounce on anyone who makes a mistake.
Not quite. It's actually a very positive process. Trained observers watch people doing their jobs and then provide positive reinforcement when they see safe behaviors. Catch people doing things right, basically.
So like, hey, I noticed you're wearing your safety glasses, even though it's hot and sweaty way to prioritize your eye health.
That's the spirit. Specific, positive, and focused on the behavior. And if you do need to point out an unsafe act, it's important to frame it in a way that encourages dialogue, not defensiveness.
Why aren't you wearing your gloves? You could say, I noticed you're working without gloves. Is there something preventing you from wearing them today? Maybe we can find a solution together.
Exactly. Open communication, collaboration, problem solving. Those are the hallmarks of a strong safety culture.
This is making me think about some of the major industrial accidents we've seen in the past. Often, investigations reveal communication breakdowns, or a culture where people were afraid to speak up about safety concerns.
You're absolutely right. Think about the Deepwater Horizon oil spill, for instance. The investigation revealed a number of missed warning signs, and a culture that prioritized speed and cost-cutting over safety. It's a tragic reminder of what can happen when communication breaks down. And safety isn't truly embedded in the organization's DNA.
It's a sobering reminder that these principles aren't just theoretical. They have real-world consequences.
Absolutely. Behavioral safety isn't just about ticking boxes. It's about saving lives and preventing disasters.
Okay, I'm sold on the importance of behavioral safety. But let's get back to those other fascinating safety roles we were discussing earlier. We touched on safety engineers and industrial hygienists. But what about those folks who specialize in fire safety? The fire protection engineers.
Ah, yes. Fire protection engineers, the guardians against fiery chaos. They're the masterminds behind fire suppression systems, alarm systems, and those escape routes we all hope we never have to use. They also work closely with architects and construction teams to ensure buildings are designed and built with fire safety in mind.
So they're not just putting out fires, but preventing them from happening in the first place.
Precisely. It's a proactive, highly technical field. They need a deep understanding of fire dynamics building codes, human behavior in emergencies, the whole 9 yards.
I imagine their work is incredibly rewarding, knowing that they're playing a key role in protecting lives and property. But it must also be a pretty high-pressure job.
Definitely. When a fire breaks out, the stakes are incredibly high. But that's what draws many people to this field. It's a chance to make a real difference and to use their knowledge to prevent those catastrophic events.
Speaking of high-pressure jobs, let's talk about ergonomists. They don't usually deal with fires or explosions, but their work is equally important in preventing a different kind of harm, the kind that creeps up on you slowly over time.
Ergonomics often gets overlooked, but it's crucial for worker health and productivity. Ergonomists focus on design and work environments and tasks that fit the human body, minimizing strain and discomfort.
So they're the ones who say, hey, let's make sure your chair is adjusted properly, you're taking breaks to stretch, and your computer screen is at the right height, so you don't end up with a crick in your neck.
Exactly. They're all about preventing those musculoskeletal disorders that can develop from repetitive motions, awkward postures, and poorly designed workspaces. Think carpal tunnel syndrome, back pain, tendinitis, the kind of stuff that can really impact your quality of life.
I bet they're pretty busy these days with so many people hunched over computers for hours on end.
You're absolutely right. The rise of sedentary work has made ergonomics more important than ever. They're helping people stay healthy and productive while working in these types of environments.
So we've got safety engineers preventing accidents, industrial hygienists protecting us from invisible threats, fire protection engineers keeping us from going up in flames, and ergonomists making sure our bodies don't fall apart from sitting at a desk all day. It's amazing how many different aspects of safety there are.
And we haven't even touched on all the specializations yet. There are folks who focus on transportation safety, construction safety, occupational health. The list goes on and on.
It really highlights the fact that safety is woven into the fabric of just about every industry imaginable.
And it makes you realize that behind every safe workplace, every well-designed building, every product that's been tested and certified, there's a team of dedicated safety professionals working hard to protect us.
Okay, we've talked a lot about the different types of safety professionals and the importance of a strong safety culture. But let's not forget about the crucial role that management plays in all of this.
Ah, yes, management. The unsung heroes of safety, right? But in all seriousness, they play a crucial role. It's not just about signing off on safety plans. It's about creating an environment where safety is truly valued and prioritized.
So what does a safety-focused management team actually look like? What kind of actions demonstrate that commitment?
It's about walking the walk. Just like we talked about earlier, a safety-conscious manager prioritizes safety in all decision-making. They allocate resources for safety training equipment and personnel. They actively participate in safety meetings and walkarounds, not just showing up for photo ops, but genuinely engaging with workers and asking questions. They're visible advocates for safe practices, setting the tone for the entire organization.
It's like they become the safety cheerleaders, not in a cheesy way, but by genuinely demonstrating that they care about people's well-being.
Exactly. When employees see that management is truly committed to safety, it sends a powerful message. It shows that safety isn't just an afterthought, but a core value. And that kind of culture trickles down, influencing everyone in the organization.
It makes me think about some of those companies that have a stellar safety record, the ones where accidents are rare. And everyone seems to be on the same page when it comes to safety.
You're right. And often behind those impressive safety records, you'll find a management team that's deeply committed to safety and is invested in creating a strong safety culture.
Speaking of investing in safety, let's talk about professional development for safety professionals themselves. How do these folks stay up to date on the latest best practices, regulations, and technologies? It seems like a field where you'd need to be constantly learning.
You're absolutely right. Just like in any other profession, continuous learning is crucial for safety professionals. They need to stay current on new regulations, emerging hazards, and technological advancements that could impact safety.
So it's not just about getting that initial degree or certification, but about constantly expanding your knowledge and skill set.
Exactly. And the good news is there are tons of resources available. to help safety professionals stay at the top of their game. Professional organizations like ASSE offer a wide range of educational programs, from online courses to in-person conferences and workshops. Many universities also have continuing education programs, specifically for safety professionals.
It sounds like there's no excuse for being a stagnant safety pro.
That's the spirit. A safety professional who isn't committed to lifelong learning is doing a disservice to themselves and the people they're responsible for protecting.
Okay, we've talked about the roles of different safety professionals, the importance of leadership and management commitment, and the need for ongoing professional development. But I think there's one crucial element we haven't fully addressed yet, the human element.
Yes, the human factor. It's often the most complex and unpredictable element in any safety equation.
At the end of the day, safety is about people, protecting them from harm, empowering them to take ownership of their own safety, and creating a workplace where everyone feels valued and respected.
Well said. It's about understanding how people think, behave, and interact with their environment, and then using that knowledge to design systems and processes that minimize risk.
It's like recognizing that people aren't robots. They get tired, they get distracted, they make mistakes. And a good safety program accounts for those human factors.
Exactly. And that's where behavioral safety principles, which we discussed earlier, come into play. It's about understanding why people might make unsafe choices and finding ways to encourage those safer behaviors.
So it's not just about telling people what to do, but about empowering them to be active participants
Okay.
in creating a safe work environment.
Precisely. And that means creating a culture where people feel comfortable speaking up about safety concerns, where they know their input is valued, and where they feel a sense of shared responsibility for keeping everyone safe.
It sounds like a lot of this comes down to trust and communication.
You nailed it. When workers trust their managers, their supervisors, and their safety professionals, they're more likely to follow safety procedures, report hazards, and participate in safety initiatives. And when communication is open and flowing freely in all directions, that's when you start to see real improvements in safety performance.
This brings us back to that concept of teamwork that we talked about earlier. Safety is a collaborative effort. It's about everyone working together towards a common goal, creating a workplace where everyone goes home safe and sound at the end of the day.
And that's a goal we're striving for every single day.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground today, but there's still so much to explore in the vast world of safety. We'll be back for part 3 of this episode, where we'll delve even deeper into specific safety specializations, discuss career paths in safety, and ponder the future of this dynamic and crucial field. Stay tuned. All right, folks, welcome back to Key Safety Talks for the grand finale, our safety and health professions extravaganza. We've explored the history, the different roles, the importance of teamwork, so much more. But as we wrap things up, I want to shift gears and delve into something we've touched on throughout our conversation, the human side of safety.
I love that you're highlighting this aspect. It's something I'm incredibly passionate about. At the end of the day, safety is all about people. It's about protecting lives, preventing injuries, and creating a work environment where everyone feels valued, respected, and empowered.
It's easy to get caught up in the technical aspects of safety, the rules, the regulations, the equipment. But ultimately, it's the human element that makes or breaks a safety program.
Absolutely. We've talked about behavioral safety, and that's a perfect example of how understanding human psychology and behavior is essential for creating a truly safe workplace.
It's like that old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. You can have the best safety procedures in the world, but if people aren't motivated to follow them, they're not going to be effective.
That's a great analogy. Behavioral safety is all about figuring out how to motivate people to make those safe choices, not through fear or punishment, but by creating a culture where safety is seen as a shared value and responsibility.
So how do you actually build that kind of culture? It sounds great in theory, but I'm curious about the practical steps involved.
Well, it starts with leadership. If the people at the top aren't genuinely committed to safety, it's going to be an uphill battle to get everyone else on board. Leadership needs to walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
They need to be the safety champions, the role models showing everyone that safety is a top priority, not just another item on a checklist.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just setting a good example. Leaders need to invest in safety resources, provide ongoing training, empower workers to speak up about safety concerns, and recognize and reward safe behaviors.
It's about creating a system where safety is integrated into every aspect of the organization, not just something that's tacked on as an afterthought.
You got it. And communication is key. Open, honest, two-way communication. Workers need to feel comfortable speaking up if they see something unsafe, and they need to know that their concerns will be taken seriously. And managers need to be willing to listen, to learn from their employees, and to make changes when necessary.
That reminds me of some of the catastrophic accidents we've seen over the years, like the Chernobyl disaster.
Yeah.
The investigations often reveal that there were warning signs, but people were afraid to speak up or their concerns were ignored.
It's a tragic reminder of how important it is to have a culture where everyone feels empowered to voice safety concerns without fear of reprisal. A culture where everyone feels like they have a stake in safety and a responsibility to look out for each other.
It makes you realize that those big accidents aren't just about technical failures. They're often about human failures, about communication breakdowns, about a lack of trust.
Absolutely. That's why behavioral safety is so important. It's about understanding those human factors, those psychological and social dynamics that can influence safety, and finding ways to address them proactively.
Okay, we've talked a lot about the importance of cultural leadership and communication, but let's get back to those individual safety professionals we discussed earlier. We left off talking about ergonomists and the rise of sedentary work. What are some other fascinating specializations within the safety field?
Oh, there are so many. We've barely scratched the surface. There are safety professionals who specialize in transportation safety, construction safety, mining safety, healthcare safety. The list goes on and on.
It's like there's a safety expert for every imaginable hazard.
Exactly. And that's what makes this field so dynamic and exciting. There's always something new to learn, new challenges to tackle, and new ways to make a difference.
So for those listeners who might be thinking about a career in safety, what advice would you give them? What kind of person thrives in this field?
First and foremost, you need to have a passion for safety. It's not just a job, it's a calling. You need to be genuinely driven by the desire to protect people from harm and to make the world a safer place.
That's a great point. It can't just be about collecting a paycheck. It has to be about something more.
Absolutely. You also need to be a lifelong learner. The field of safety is constantly evolving, with new technologies, new regulations, and new hazards emerging all the time. So you need to be curious, adaptable, and always eager to expand your knowledge.
That's a theme we've touched on throughout our conversation, the importance of continuous learning.
Exactly. And it's not just about formal education. It's about being observant, asking questions, staying up to date on industry trends, and being willing to learn from your mistakes.
That's great advice. So you've got the passion, you're committed to learning. What else?
Well, you need to be a good communicator. Safety professionals often act as a bridge between management and workers, so you need to be able to communicate effectively with both audiences, explaining complex technical information in a way that's easy to understand.
I imagine you also need to be a bit of a diplomat, mediating between different perspectives and finding solutions that work for everyone.
That's a great point. You need to be able to build relationships, foster trust, and find common ground even when there are disagreements.
It sounds like being a successful safety professional requires a unique combination of technical knowledge, people skills, and a genuine desire to make a difference.
You nailed it. It's a challenging but incredibly rewarding field.
I'm curious about your thoughts on the future of safety. We've talked about how technology is impacting the workplace, and it seems like that trend is only going to accelerate. How do you see these advancements shaping the safety profession in the years to come?
That's a great question, and it's something that a lot of us in the field are thinking about. Technology is definitely going to continue to play a huge role in shaping the future of safety. We're already seeing the impact of things like artificial intelligence automation and big data, and these technologies are only going to become more sophisticated and more integrated into the workplace.
It seems like safety professionals are going to need to become even more tech-savvy to keep up.
Absolutely. They'll need to understand how these technologies work, how they can be used safely, and how to identify and mitigate the potential risks they pose.
I can imagine AI playing a role in hazard identification and risk assessment, for example.
Exactly. And it could also be used to analyze data and identify patterns that might not be obvious to the human eye, helping us to prevent accidents before they happen.
That's incredible. It sounds like technology has the potential to make the workplace even safer.
I think it does. But it's important to remember that technology is just a tool. It's up to us, the safety professionals, to ensure that it's used responsibly and ethically, always with the goal of protecting people.
That's a crucial point. We can't just blindly trust technology to solve all our safety problems. We need to be thoughtful and intentional about how we use it.
Well said. And I think that's where the human element comes back into play. Even in a world of robots and algorithms, it's still people who are making the decisions, setting the policies, and ultimately responsible for creating a safe work environment.
So even in the future of safety, those core principles we've talked about, leadership, teamwork, communication, continuous learning, they're still going to be essential.
Absolutely. Those principles are timeless. They're the foundation of a strong safety culture, regardless of what technological advancements come our way.
This has been such an insightful conversation. I feel like I've gained a whole new appreciation for the complexity and importance of safety and health professions. It's clear that it's a dynamic, challenging, and incredibly rewarding field.
I couldn't agree more. It's a field that's constantly evolving, embracing new technologies and expanding its focus to encompass the whole worker, not just their physical safety.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the world of safety and health professions. A huge thank you to our expert for sharing your incredible insights with us.
It's been my pleasure. I'm always passionate about talking about safety.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey. We hope you've learned something new and maybe even discovered a newfound appreciation for the incredible work that safety professionals do every day. Remember, safety is everyone's responsibility. Let's all work together to make the world a safer place. Thanks for listening to Key Safety Talks.